Ladies and gentlemen, we are standing at a unique moment in time where the world as we know it is transforming in ways that are both visible and invisible. A time when old paradigms are giving way to new possibilities, when the earth herself is calling for a shift in consciousness. In the midst of this, one of the most profound realizations dawning upon us is this: the Kalyug has ended. Now, before we rush to define or dismiss this, let's take a step back. The concept of Kalyug, as many of you might know, refers to an age of darkness, chaos, and degeneration, an era characterized by the loss of moral values, ignorance, and a disconnection from the spiritual dimensions of life. But let us not confuse Kalyug with merely a calendar cycle. It is a reflection of the human condition. It is a product of how we perceive ourselves, our relationships with each other, and our very existence. And today we see the dawn of something new, something beyond the rigid limitations of time and space that once defined our perceptions. The Kalyug is not just a time, it is an attitude, a consciousness. And as we stand here today, we have the opportunity to embrace a higher state of being. Let's consider this carefully. Can we as individuals awaken to a higher consciousness? Can we shift from merely surviving to truly living? Can we break free from the cycles of conflict, greed and delusion? The concept of Kalyug, or the age of darkness, is one that resonates deeply within the collective consciousness of humanity. For centuries it has been viewed as an inevitable period where the moral fabric of society deteriorates and human beings become increasingly disconnected from the higher truths of existence. During this phase, there is a decline in dharma or righteousness, and the world appears to spiral into chaos. We often associate Kalyug with disorder, suffering and confusion, and many hold the belief that it is an age from which there is no escape. But if we take a step back and observe the world around us, we notice something remarkable. The age we live in, despite the turmoil and struggles we face, is also the age of possibility. We live in a time where the barriers of thought, belief and geography have been shattered in ways unimaginable just a few decades ago. Technology has connected us to one another like never before, and information flows at a speed that brings us closer to truth. Despite the seeming darkness, there is an awakening happening, one that is subtle but undeniable. We are seeing the end of the Kalyug, but not in the sense of an external event, a sudden change or a cataclysmic moment. The end of Kalyug is not a grand, sweeping judgment passed upon the world, but rather a shift in the very consciousness of humanity. It is the realization that the cycles of suffering, the cycles of confusion, and the cycles of division can be transcended. The end of Kalyug lies not in waiting for the world to change, but in recognizing that it is we as individuals who must change. This is the age where human beings are beginning to awaken to their deeper potential. The illusion that we are separate from each other, from nature and from the divine, is beginning to dissolve. People are looking within themselves for answers, not merely seeking external validation or possessions. The material world, once seen as the ultimate source of happiness, is slowly being recognized as fleeting and insufficient. In its place, there is a growing awareness of the need for inner peace, harmony and connection. It is not about abandoning the world we live in, but about realizing the limitations of the world we have created. The external circumstances of life are only a reflection of what is happening within us. If we shift the inner narrative, the outer world must follow. As individuals embrace practices of mindfulness, meditation and self-awareness, they begin to heal not only themselves but the collective fabric of society. Every small act of kindness, every moment of self-reflection, every effort to break free from the shackles of ignorance contributes to the ending of Kalyug. The structures that have long governed our societies, political, economic and social, are beginning to show signs of their fragility. Old systems that once thrived on division, greed and power are no longer as effective in an era where people are awakening to their true nature. As the collective consciousness shifts, the outdated systems must inevitably give way to something more harmonious, more inclusive and more aligned with the true essence of life. The end of Kalyug then is not a prophecy fulfilled in a single moment, but rather an ongoing process. It is a process of awakening, of shedding the layers of illusion that have clouded human perception. As we let go of the old ways of thinking, feeling and living, we make room for a new consciousness to emerge, one that is based on unity, compassion and a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of all life. This shift is not reserved for the few, nor is it an event that only a select group will experience. The end of Kalyug is available to each and every one of us. It is a personal journey that leads to collective transformation. When one individual awakens, the ripples of that awakening touch the entire world. As more individuals choose to live in alignment with their highest potential, the collective human consciousness rises and we move closer to the dawn of a new era. Ultimately, the end of Kalyug signifies the beginning of a new phase in human evolution, one where the divine within each of us is recognized and celebrated, where our actions are guided by wisdom and compassion, and where the earth itself is honored as a sacred living entity. It is a time when we will no longer seek to dominate or exploit, but to live in harmony with the world around us. It is a time when humanity will no longer be trapped in the cycles of suffering, but will instead rise to its true purpose to create, to love, and to live with a sense of profound interconnectedness and joy. And so, as we stand at this pivotal moment in time, we have the choice to participate in this awakening. We can be the catalyst for the end of Kalyug, not by waiting for something to happen, but by choosing to evolve consciously and live in alignment with the higher truths of existence. The time has come for each of us to recognize that the end of Kalyug begins within our hearts, within our minds, and within our actions. It is time for us to embrace a higher way of being, and in doing so, create a new world for all of us to thrive in. Consciousness is not merely a passive observer of life, but the very fabric through which we experience our reality. It shapes the way we perceive the world, how we relate to others, and how we understand ourselves. Every thought, emotion, and action we take is rooted in our consciousness, and it is this consciousness that determines the quality of our existence. The role of consciousness, therefore, cannot be overstated. It is the lens through which we interpret the world and the force that drives the direction of our lives. In many ways, consciousness is the silent architect of the reality we live in. Our external world, with all its complexities and challenges, is a reflection of our inner state. The thoughts we entertain, the beliefs we hold, and the attitudes we cultivate have a direct impact on how we experience the world. If our consciousness is clouded with fear, doubt, or negativity, we will inevitably see a world filled with those very elements. On the other hand, when our consciousness is clear, expansive, and aligned with higher principles, the world around us transforms to mirror that clarity. At the heart of human suffering is often a disconnection from the deeper, more expansive aspects of consciousness. Many of us live in a state of constant distraction, running on autopilot, never fully present with ourselves or the world around us. This fragmentation of consciousness leads to inner conflict, confusion, and discontentment. It is only when we turn inward, when we begin to cultivate a state of self-awareness, that we can begin to unravel the root causes of our suffering and move toward a more harmonious way of being. The transformation of consciousness is not an abstract or distant goal, it is a practical and immediate process. Every time we make a conscious choice to step out of old patterns of thinking or reacting, we shift the energy of our being. Every moment of mindfulness, every practice of presence, every effort to observe our thoughts without attachment brings us closer to a state of greater awareness. It is in these small moments of self-awareness that our consciousness begins to expand, and with it, the quality of our lives begins to change. But transformation of consciousness is not limited to the individual. Just as a single drop of water creates ripples across a pond, the expansion of individual consciousness affects the collective consciousness. When we choose to live with greater awareness, compassion, and presence, we not only change ourselves but also influence the world around us. The very fabric of society begins to shift as more and more individuals awaken to the power of their consciousness. As our individual awareness grows, the collective consciousness rises, leading to a more harmonious and enlightened world. One of the key aspects of consciousness is its potential for boundless expansion. We often think of consciousness in limited terms, either as a product of our minds or something confined to our personal experiences. But in reality, consciousness is vast and infinite, stretching far beyond the confines of our individual selves. There is a dimension of consciousness that is universal, that connects all of us, transcending time, space, and the barriers of ego. This is the consciousness of unity, the recognition that we are all interconnected, that the same life force that animates each of us is the same life force that flows through all beings. To realize the full potential of our consciousness is to step into this universal awareness, to understand that our individual existence is a part of a much greater whole. This is not merely a philosophical concept but a direct experience. When we shift our awareness from the limited sense of self to the expansive awareness of oneness, we begin to see the world in an entirely new light. We recognize that the boundaries that separate us, whether they be between nations, religions, or individuals, are illusions, and in reality we are all expressions of the same universal consciousness. This shift in perception changes everything. When we see ourselves as part of the whole, we no longer live in isolation or competition with others. We begin to act with compassion, understanding, and a deep sense of responsibility toward the world around us. The problems we face, whether they be personal, societal, or global, are no longer seen as external forces to fight against, but as reflections of the inner state of humanity. As we elevate our consciousness, we naturally move towards solutions that are rooted in unity, cooperation and love. The role of consciousness is also integral to our personal growth and evolution. It is through consciousness that we become aware of our own potential. Our ability to create, to love, to innovate and to heal is all tied to our level of consciousness. The more we awaken to the truth of who we are, the more we tap into the vast potential that lies dormant within us. The obstacles we face are not as insurmountable as they appear when seen through the lens of expanded consciousness. When we recognize that we are not limited by our circumstances but empowered by our awareness, we become capable of achieving the extraordinary. Furthermore, consciousness is not a static entity but a dynamic process. It evolves with every experience, every challenge and every insight we gain. As we journey through life, our consciousness continues to grow and transform. The more we embrace this process, the more we align with the flow of life itself. This is why consciousness is often described as both the journey and the destination. It is the path we walk and the truth we seek, intertwined in a single, unfolding experience. In a world where confusion and conflict often seem dominant, the awakening of consciousness offers a beacon of hope. It is through the cultivation of awareness that we can break free from the cycles of suffering, division and limitation. When we recognize that the power to change lies within us, in the very fabric of our consciousness, we take the first step toward creating a world that reflects the highest potential of humanity. And it is in this awakened state that we find true freedom, not as a distant ideal but as a living reality, accessible in every moment. The human condition is a vast and complex tapestry woven from the threads of experience, perception, emotion and action. It encompasses the full spectrum of human life, from our deepest struggles and fears to our highest aspirations and moments of joy. Each individual's journey through life is marked by a unique set of circumstances, yet there is an underlying commonality in the human experience that connects us all. The human condition is shaped by our thoughts, desires, relationships and interactions with the world around us. It is both a personal and collective experience, and it is often influenced by the social, cultural and historical contexts in which we find ourselves. At the heart of the human condition lies the quest for meaning. From the moment we become aware of our existence, we begin searching for a purpose, a reason for why we are here. This search is driven by an innate desire to understand ourselves and the world we inhabit. Some turn to religion, philosophy or spirituality for answers, while others seek meaning through science, art or human connection. Regardless of the path we take, the search for meaning is a constant thread that runs through the fabric of our lives. However, the human condition is not defined solely by our search for meaning. It is also marked by the challenges we face in navigating the complexities of life. We experience pain, loss and disappointment, and often struggle to make sense of the suffering that seems inherent in the human experience. There are moments when life feels chaotic, when we are overwhelmed by the uncertainties of the future or the weight of the past. We are constantly confronted with our own limitations, whether physical, emotional or mental, and the fragility of the human body and mind. We are in many ways caught between the paradox of our vast potential and our undeniable vulnerability. One of the defining aspects of the human condition is our awareness of mortality. From the moment we are born, we are acutely aware that our time on this earth is finite. This awareness shapes the way we live, the choices we make and the relationships we form. It compels us to seek significance in our lives, to leave a legacy or to make the most of the time we have. The knowledge of our mortality often leads us to grapple with existential questions. What happens after we die? What is the purpose of life? Is there meaning in suffering? These questions, while difficult and uncomfortable, are central to the human experience. Another fundamental aspect of the human condition is our capacity for self-awareness. Unlike other creatures, humans have the ability to reflect on their own thoughts and emotions, to question their place in the world, and to search for deeper understanding. This self-awareness is both a gift and a burden. On one hand, it allows us to grow, learn and adapt. It gives us the ability to transcend our immediate circumstances and envision a broader, more meaningful existence. On the other hand, it can lead to existential anxiety as we become increasingly aware of the complexities and contradictions inherent in life. The awareness of our own thoughts, feelings and actions can create a sense of separation from the world around us, leading to feelings of isolation and alienation. At the same time, the human condition is defined by our capacity for connection. While we may experience moments of isolation or disconnection, the longing for connection with others is a universal aspect of our experience. We seek companionship, understanding and love. We thrive in relationships, whether familial, romantic or platonic, and the bonds we form with others are often the most meaningful aspects of our lives. Our capacity to love, empathize and support one another is one of the most beautiful expressions of the human condition. It is through our connections with others that we find solace in times of hardship and joy in moments of celebration. Yet, even in our search for connection, we often find ourselves grappling with conflict, whether on a personal level through misunderstandings, disagreements or betrayal, or on a societal level through wars, inequality and division. The human condition is marked by tension. We are constantly navigating the delicate balance between our individual desires and the collective needs of society. We are challenged by the limitations of our own perspectives, which are often shaped by culture, upbringing and personal experience. These divisions, whether internal or external, create friction and struggle, yet they also present opportunities for growth, understanding and transformation. The human condition is also shaped by our relationship with the world around us. We are deeply connected to the earth, yet we often treat it as something separate from ourselves, something to be exploited or controlled. The rise of industrialization, consumerism and environmental degradation has created a disconnect between humans and nature. This disconnection has led to a sense of disorientation as we lose sight of our place within the larger ecological system. The human condition is in many ways a reflection of this disconnection as we grapple with our dependence on the natural world and the consequences of our actions on the planet. As we awaken to the realities of climate change, biodiversity loss and ecological collapse, we are faced with the urgent need to reconsider our relationship with the earth. Despite the challenges and contradictions of the human condition, there is a profound beauty in the way we navigate our existence. It is through our struggles, our pain, our joys and our triumphs that we grow and evolve. The human condition is not static, it is a dynamic process of becoming. It is a continuous journey of self-discovery, learning and transformation. Each individual's path is unique, but there is a shared thread that unites us all: the search for meaning, the desire for connection, the awareness of our mortality, and the hope for transcendence. It is this shared journey that makes us human, and it is through our collective experience that we come to understand the true depth and richness of the human condition. Though the human condition may often seem filled with contradiction and paradox, it is in embracing these complexities that we find the true essence of life. The tension between light and dark, joy and sorrow, love and loss is what gives life its depth. It is through facing these challenges and embracing the unknown that we discover our capacity for resilience, compassion and transformation. In the end, the human condition is not something to be solved or escaped from, but something to be lived with awareness, acceptance and an open heart. Awakening to a higher state of being is a profound and transformative experience that goes beyond intellectual understanding or conceptual knowledge. It is a shift in perception, a deep realization that our true nature transcends the boundaries of the ego, the mind and the conditioned patterns of thought that often define us. To awaken to a higher state is to step into a deeper dimension of life, one where we experience a greater sense of clarity, peace and connection to the essence of existence. In the state of awakening, the individual becomes aware of a larger, more expansive reality, one that is not limited by the confines of the physical world or by the perceptions shaped by the ego. There is a recognition that our thoughts, emotions and external circumstances are not the full measure of who we are. At the core of this awakening is the realization that there is a consciousness that exists beyond the fleeting nature of the mind and the body. This consciousness is still vast and all-encompassing. It is the source of all life, and it is within each of us. When we awaken to this higher state, we begin to see that we are not separate from the world around us, but an intrinsic part of it. The journey toward awakening often begins with a subtle discomfort, a sense that there is more to life than what we are currently experiencing. Many people feel a yearning for something deeper, a call from within that encourages them to question the nature of their existence and the meaning of their life. This longing may arise in moments of stillness, during periods of personal hardship or even in times of great joy. It is the impulse to go beyond the surface, to explore the deeper dimensions of reality that are not immediately visible or tangible. As we begin this journey of awakening, it often starts with the practice of self-inquiry, looking inward to explore the nature of our thoughts, our emotions and our identity. This process of self-awareness helps to break down the illusion of separation that we carry with us. We begin to see that many of the labels we've assigned to ourselves, our roles, our identities, our attachments are transient, impermanent and ultimately not who we are. This discovery can be unsettling at first as it challenges everything we've believed about ourselves. But over time, it becomes a liberating process. By releasing these false identifications, we create space for a more authentic experience of life. In moments of awakening, there is often an experience of profound stillness. It is as though the noise of the world and the constant chatter of the mind fall silent, and what remains is a deep, unshakable sense of presence. This stillness is not an absence but a presence that is both expansive and infinite. It is in this stillness that the individual can experience the vastness of their true nature. Here the mind is no longer the master but the servant. It no longer dictates how we perceive the world or react to circumstances. Instead, we begin to experience life from a space of inner peace and equanimity, where we can observe thoughts and emotions without being attached to them or swept away by them. The process of awakening is also closely tied to the dissolution of the ego. The ego, which is often understood as the individual sense of self, is not inherently bad, it is simply a product of our conditioning and experiences. The ego helps us navigate the world, but it also limits our experience by creating a sense of separation and distinction. When we awaken to a higher state, the boundaries of the ego begin to dissolve. We start to realize that the I we thought we were is not separate from the world but interconnected with it. This realization brings with it a sense of unity, a recognition that all beings, all of existence, are expressions of the same underlying consciousness. This shift from a narrow, self-centered view of the world to a broader, more inclusive perspective opens up new possibilities for how we live. We begin to act from a place of compassion, recognizing that the well-being of others is inextricably linked to our own. The awareness of our interconnectedness leads to a natural desire to contribute to the greater good, to live not just for our own benefit, but for the benefit of all beings. In this higher state of awareness, our actions are not driven by selfish desires or fears, but by a deep sense of responsibility, kindness, and love. One of the most striking aspects of awakening to a higher state is the experience of living in the present moment. So much of our lives are spent dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, and this constant preoccupation with time keeps us disconnected from the richness of the present. In moments of awakening, we recognize that the present moment is all there is. We are no longer trapped by the stories of who we were or the anxieties of what may come. There is only the now, and in this now there is a profound sense of freedom and peace. The mind, which is constantly jumping from one thought to the next, finds rest in the simple act of being. In this state of presence, we experience life more fully, with greater depth and meaning. Awakening to a higher state also brings with it a greater understanding of the impermanence of life. We come to understand that everything in the material world is fleeting and transient. Our bodies, our possessions, our achievements, they are all temporary. This recognition is not a cause for despair but for liberation. When we no longer cling to the idea of permanence, we are freed from the fear of loss and change. We learn to embrace life as it is, with all its ups and downs, knowing that everything is part of the larger flow of existence. We move through life with a greater sense of equanimity, accepting whatever comes our way with grace and ease. The higher state of being is not something that can be attained through external achievements or possessions. It is not a goal to be reached but a realization of what has always been within us. It is an inner awakening that transcends the mind, the body, and the external world. As we awaken, we begin to recognize that we are not separate from the universe, we are an integral part of it. The beauty, the love, the wisdom, and the peace we seek are already present within us, waiting to be realized. In this awakened state, we no longer seek validation from external sources. We are no longer dependent on the approval of others or the attainment of material success to feel fulfilled. True fulfillment comes from within. It arises from the realization of our oneness with life, from the recognition that we are not defined by our past or our circumstances, but by the consciousness that flows through us. This realization brings with it an unshakable sense of peace, a deep knowing that all is well just as it is. To awaken to a higher state is to awaken to the truth of who we are. It is to let go of the illusions and false identifications that have kept us trapped in cycles of suffering and limitation. It is to step into the fullness of our being, to recognize our divine nature and to live in alignment with that truth. In this awakened state, life becomes a constant unfolding of grace, an expression of the highest potential of who we can be. As we stand at the crossroads of our existence, we are all invited to awaken to this higher state of being. The journey is not about reaching a destination but about becoming more aware, more present, and more connected to the truth of who we are. It is a journey that requires us to step beyond the limitations of the mind and the ego, to dissolve the illusions of separation, and to recognize the boundless consciousness within us all. In every moment, we have the opportunity to align with this higher state. It is not something that can be attained through external effort, but something we must realize from within. And as we awaken, we don't just transform ourselves, we begin to transform the world around us. The peace, love, and wisdom we uncover within ourselves ripple out into the world, creating a greater sense of unity, compassion, and understanding for all. The invitation is clear: step into the fullness of your being. Embrace the present moment, surrender the illusion of separation, and live with the awareness that you are an integral part of this vast, interconnected universe. As we each awaken to this higher state, we contribute to the collective rise in consciousness, bringing forth a world that reflects our highest potential. So let us walk this path together with open hearts and minds, embracing the awakening that is waiting for each of us. The higher state of being is not a distant ideal, but a living reality that exists within us all. It is time to remember who we truly are and live accordingly. The journey of awakening is ours to take, and with each step, we move closer to the truth that has always been within us.